Alright, how to do cylinder leakage test from start to finish. First, we're going to go after cylinder number 2 right here, but the issue is we need to get cylinder number 2 on the compression stroke. There's a couple ways. We could go ahead and, this is of course cylinder 1 I'm pointing to, but we could drop a screwdriver down in there and turn the engine over and watch it kind of come up till it sort of peaks. But I don't think that's really the best way, just in case that screwdriver gets jammed. So we're going to use the compression tester, since we just did a compression test. And Fernando's going to crank this thing over, and once we see a little pulse, I'm going to tell him to stop, and then we'll know it's at least on the compression stroke. And so, Fernando, crank it. A little bit. Right there, stop. Already, we're right there. Now we know, because it built compression, which I'll release, that he's on compression stroke. So from there, what we're going to do is pull this compression tester. Felipe, will you grab that hose with no valve that's over there? So compression testers have that Schrader valve in the hose. We need one with no valve for the cylinder leakage. So we're going to go ahead, no valve, put that in number 2. Just like we're doing a compression test, but that valve holds it so your gauge will show the reading. And then our next step, set that guy right up here, and then we're gonna hook the hose up to this end. So right now it's just sitting there, and go ahead over there. We're gonna hook up the air hose to it, and this is when we have to basically set the tool up. So there's this regulator. We're going to turn that regulator. If I turn it counterclockwise, you see it's down in the 20%. We want to turn it up so it's in the set range. Then when it's in the set range, looks like I want it right on the money. So we're good there. It's on the set range. We don't have it hooked to the hose yet. The next step, since we know it's on compression, is we are going to lock down that crankshaft bolt. So we're going to get a breaker bar. It's going to take, it's going to have a lot of force. So we're going to pin that thing down. I'm going to have a little bit of help on that. So, all right. Well, yep, I got Felipe. He's holding that thing. Now, I don't know which way it's going to try to turn, but when it does, it's going to want to move you. Now, Jay, you're up. You're going to hook up this hose to that hose, and then we're going to look for a reading. So go ahead and do it. Hook it right up. We got it all set otherwise. Felipe, you're holding it, right? Yeah. What's your problem up there? What, you didn't eat your Wheaties?
Why is it not locked?
Will it not hook up?
It's this one.
Alright, we got the right hose on there now. There you go. Look at that number. Good number. In the green is good. Felipe, is that thing trying to turn you or what?
Yeah.
Alright, but you held it long enough where we got our reading. So guess what? Cylinder number 2 has no leakage. But now you know what we got to do? Disconnect that hose. We're going to do the same setup for cylinder number 1. On it. Alright, so we pulled our hose from cylinder number 2, put it to cylinder number 1. We're going to hook up the compression tester to that hose right there. Now we could turn this over by hand, but you know, we're trying to do things kind of the easy way. You're not going to have a malfunction again, are you? Is that hooked up? Okay. Now Fernando, we're going to watch this gauge. Fernando's going to turn the engine over. Go ahead, crank it a little. Keep going. Keep going. A little more. More. Crank it a little longer. Ooh, it had just a little bump. Keep cranking. More. A little bit more. Ah, you know what? This cylinder had no compression. So it's going to be tough to find top dead center. So we're going to have to do it a different way. We're going to go ahead and pull this compression tester back off. Alright, we had to resort to more caveman ways. We dropped a long screwdriver in there. We're going to turn this crankshaft over by hand, and we're going to watch for this thing to pick up. Keep it going. Borrow that light. You're not getting tired down there, are you?
No.
Alright. We're still turning. It should be fairly easy to turn.
All up.
So, here it is, real long screwdriver. Go ahead, back it up. Keep going, a little more. A little more. A little more. And a little more.
Oh, right there.
Stop. It started to go back down. Now we're going to see if that timing mark makes sense. On this crankshaft down here, easier said than done, but there's going to be a timing mark. You can barely see it. It's a little white dot. Trying to knock it all whited out with this light. But there's a white dot right there. Hold this light. Shine it down in here. Right here. There's a dot. It's hard to see, but you can tell. We got it lined up. We know that we're on top dead center. Questionable whether on compression or not, but we're definitely on top dead center. So we're going to give that a shot and go ahead and hook our leakage tester up and see what kind of numbers we get. Alright, so going back to the tester with no Schrader valve in it, go ahead and thread that into cylinder number 1. You remember how to test this? We're going to hook this up, right? Felipe, you're going to hold the crankshaft again. You know, if this cylinder makes no compression, I suspect it might not try to slide you off across the floor this time. But Felipe's going to hold that. There's another step we're going to do because we know this cylinder is probably going to have some leakage. I'm going to pop off the radiator cap. It's already cold, so we're safe. We're going to remove the oil cap. We've got the air box loose. And we got the exhaust pipe in the back. What we're going to do right now is go ahead, hold that crankshaft real nice and still. You ready? You're on it. Getting down in there. Now you ready? Hook up that cylinder leakage tester. We still had it set. And here it comes. Look at that number. We were on the last one around low. We were around like real close to zero leakage. Right now we're leaking 90% of our air. That's a problem. You don't feel a whole lot of strain down there, huh? It's not even trying to turn it. So that indicates one of two things. Either we're on top dead center of the exhaust stroke or of the compression stroke. But based on some noise that I'm hearing, I think that we got it. So here's what we're going to check. While we have air going in there, all the air's leaking out. Where's it going? Well, there's a couple spots. And just based on the sound, we can already tell. But we're going to listen for the leak back here at the exhaust. Right here, there's her tailpipe. I hear nothing. So that tells us it doesn't appear to be leaking from an exhaust valve, which I guess could be good. Now we're going to listen at that intake. Let's sneak right in there.
There's the oil port in the block coming up.
I hear nothing leaking out the intake. Now we're looking for bubbles in our radiator or air. Nothing. If I squeeze it, you can see it's got coolant, but no bubbles. However, there's a lot of noise coming from here. A lot of noise. Why? It appears that we have some leakage on the bottom end. So at this point, we know we've got... Oh, and no noise from the other spark plug holes. Hard to tell on camera, but the noise isn't coming from either of these, particularly the one next door. If it were, that would kind of indicate a head gasket blown between cylinder number 1 and 2. If it were leaking out the intake, that would indicate an intake valve. If it were leaking out of the radiator, we'd be thinking head gasket, but it's leaking out the oil fill cap. So the diagnosis is we've got one of a few things. Worn piston rings, worn cylinder wall or piston, or maybe a hole in the piston, which we don't exactly know which one of those it is right now. We know it's one of those, so we know it's bottom end. In other words, the head is good, the valves are good, the camshaft, I mean, it's not a valve clearance issue, no bent valves. We know that it's a bottom end thing. So the next step, logically, would be to be really sure. We could rotate this engine 180 degrees to make sure that we're definitely, well, it'd really be 360 of the crank to know that we're definitely on compression and not exhaust. But we really know what we got here, but I'm saying you probably should if you're afraid. We know we're gonna have to get a borescope, and we're gonna see what that looks like inside that cylinder. So that's it. We pretty much know what we got.